If you've ever taken lion's mane, reishi, or cordyceps and felt nothing, this episode explained exactly why. Today on the One Thing podcast, I'm joined by Dr. Anna Sitkoff, naturopathic physician, researcher, clinical formulator, and one of the most rigorous voices in modern medicinal mushroom medicine. This isn't a surface level conversation about adaptogens or trendy mushroom blends. Dr. Sitkoff blends together deep clinical experience, laboratory research, and traditional medicine to explain what actually determines whether medicinal mushrooms work or don't. From extraction methods and dosing errors to fruiting body versus mycelium, we unpack why so many people try high-quality sounding mushroom products and walk away unimpressed. We explore how mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, and turkey tail truly affect the immune system, the gut-brain axis, mitochondrial function, burnout, neurodegeneration, and cancer support, and why context, timing, and formulation matter just as much as the species itself. Dr. Sitkoff is also the co-founder of Lucidum Medicinals, a company built from the exact clinical and scientific principles we discussed today, designed not for hype, but for real-world results. Whether you're a clinician, a health professional, or someone who's simply tried mushrooms and wondered what you're missing, this episode will permanently change how you think about medicinal mushrooms and how to use them correctly. Let's dive in. Dr. Sitkoff, welcome to the One Thing podcast. It's great to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Great getting to know you, a fellow naturopathic physician. It's always a highlight for me when I get to speak with someone in our profession. And so thanks. And looking forward to getting into this most interesting topic. So I figured a great place to start would be just to really hear your interesting background. You're a clinician, you're also a researcher, you're also a formulator. What inspired your transition from research to clinical practice and specifically focused on medicinal mushrooms?
Yeah, so my passion for mushrooms came long before I did any mushroom research at Bastyr. It all started with wild crafting and medicine making and educating. And when I had the opportunity to do research at Bastyr, I really got to choose kind of whatever natural substance I wanted and whatever cancer cells I wanted,
Mm.
which was an amazing opportunity. Thank you, Cynthia Wenner, for that. And so I chose this mushroom, the rosy polypore, and it grows all over St. Edward's State Park. So I got to utilize my wild crafting skills and collect the mushrooms. And then what we were looking at was different extraction methods and how those different extraction methods impacted immune cells differently. So I got to utilize my medicine making skills there. And I think that that research helped to kind of round out my understanding of how mushrooms work on a physiological level. And then all that was kind of missing for me was like implementing them clinically. I'd yet to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw when I was in the clinic as a student was that nobody really knew how to prescribe mushrooms very well,
Mm.
or I should say, prescribe the fungal organisms very well, and wrong form or wrong dose, kind of wrong combination of things. And so after seeing that and kind of educating my supervisors about how to properly prescribe mushrooms, was able to utilize that now as a practicing clinician. I get the opportunity to, like, really have the full, well-rounded, kind of background of mushroom medicine on all of the levels, and now I get to use them in clinical practice and see how they actually work for people in different situations. And I should say it's like my practice is not focused on medicinal mushrooms. Medicinal mushrooms are a tool in my toolkit,
Right.
and I happen to know a lot about them, so I do prescribe them quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's not I have plenty of patients that have probably never taken a mushroom before.
Yeah. That's such an astute observation to make as a student clinician to see that and to have the objective view and
Yeah, well,
of
it
that.
was I knew too much at that point. I was like, yeah, and it was funny too because I think many supervisors, whether it be on an oncology shift or kind of other, they were asking me what they should use. I think
Mm,
they, like, understood that I knew a lot about medicinal mushrooms, and so I became a resource for the clinic,
very
kind of
nice.
what forms, what companies to use, and yeah.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really interesting point about natural medicine in general is the knock on certain natural therapies is I tried this, it didn't work, and then it just gets kicked to the curb for forever.
Yeah,
And the knowledge of dosing and constituent and timing and this is where it's at. And until we figure that out, we could be really doing a disservice to these medicines.
absolutely. Yeah, it's like if you take a mushroom, but it's the wrong dose, or you take it with food when you should be taking it without food. Like, yeah, there's so much art that goes into the way that we prescribe natural compounds
Hmm.
that I think a lot of people aren't really aware of the kind of that thought that goes into it. It's not the same as just, like, buying a nutraceutical off of Amazon and taking it for whatever condition.
Yeah, exactly. When it brings it back a memory of just being in Bastyr and being down in the formulating with herbs and coming up with formulas and actually putting them together with our own hands and going out and harvesting. It was a little bit like Harry Potter. And interesting thing is people who haven't touched the herbs and prescribe these medicines or supplements, I think they're sorely lacking in this kind of connection and understanding of the medicine. I'm curious what if you can comment on that and how just being in harvesting yourself and actually putting together formulas and going through the extraction process, how that really shaped your knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one part of that is sometimes the medicine is just collecting the mushroom.
Mm,
Or the plant for that matter, right? Just being in the forest.
mhm,
But I do think that just understanding maybe even the tree that the mushroom was growing on, like,
mm,
that influences the compounds in the mushroom. How old the mushroom is when it's harvested influences the secondary metabolites in the mushroom.
mhm.
Then there's that understanding there. Even, like, the way that the mushroom smells, you're gonna get an idea of some of the other, like, volatile compounds that might be in that mushroom. So, I mean, there's all of that, and then also it's, like, the process of making the medicine. So, say we're doing the aqueous extract with mushrooms, you wanna have often with most mushrooms, you wanna have this water extract and an alcohol extract, because they have different constituents, different compounds that are either fat soluble or water soluble. And when you're making the medicine, you can actually see those compounds. It's like when you boil the mushroom and then if you pour alcohol over that water extract, you see all the polysaccharides precipitate
Mm,
out, and it's like this gooey
mhm.
kind of material where it's like you're not gonna have an idea of, like, what polysaccharides look like if you've never seen that happen, you're just taking a capsule or something, and I think as a consumer, maybe all of that is not important to know, but as a formulator and a clinician, I think that it's helpful
Right.
to know. It's like the mushrooms now that are in the that I formulate that are in the supplements for my supplement company, we're not growing those mushrooms. I'm not making that medicine, but I have this whole background of understanding of what it takes to make good medicine, and so, yeah, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, let's talk about that because most people found a company or come up with a product based on their own understanding of the marketplace or the needs that are not met or even just a personal frustration. with what's out there and what's not available. So, did any of that influence you to found Lucidum Medicinals?
All of it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think part of it was that I wanted certain mixtures. I wanted certain mushrooms to be together in formula that I wasn't seeing on the market, mostly when with most companies, when there's mushrooms in formula, or I should say in, like, there it's usually not a formula, it's more of just like a blend. Not super intentional, it's just like, "Oh, let's take these 5 mushrooms and put them in here, and we'll call it the 5 mushroom blend."
Hmm.
And I wanted the kind of perfect combination of mushrooms for respiratory health and the perfect combination for brain and nerve health and for immune health, and I wasn't seeing that, so that was one intention, was to create that. And then the other thing was maybe if there was a mushroom blend, they weren't in the amounts that I wanted, and
Mhm.
so considering kind of historical use and more modern clinical research, and then also kind of what I see be beneficial for people in my practice, like, taking all of that into consideration is what makes up, like, why the mushrooms are in the amounts that they are in the
Yeah.
formulas. And then the other part of that too is, like, the largest mushroom company on the market is not really mushrooms, and
Mm,
so that's a whole other conversation that we should
mm.
definitely have, and so I wanted to make sure that the right part of the fungal organism was what was being used in the products that I was prescribing to patients.
Wow, that sounds interesting. I'm interested in hearing about that. Let's get into that in a second.
Yeah.
Before we kinda go into that, I'm curious, you mentioned, I think, a researcher that was a big influence in your kind of your journey earlier in the conversation. I'd love to hear some of the people in the field of medicinal mushrooms that have influenced you.
Yeah, so the person that I mentioned was Dr. Cynthia Wenner, and I don't know if she was at Bastyr when you
She's
were there?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and so she was our immunology professor, and
Mm,
she ran the research lab when or she didn't run the lab, but she ran that, like, that specific class that I was part of, and she really gave me some amazing opportunities as far as just, like, the freedom to make all of my own extracts, choose how I was gonna make them,
mm,
choose the mushroom I was using, like, it was really whatever I wanted to do, so I'm so
yeah.
grateful for that. And she was a big part of that research project
Mhm,
on the rosy polypore. And as far as, like, mushroom mentors, there's really one main person in my life, and that's Jeff Chilton,
hmm,
and he runs Namex, North American Mushroom Extracts, up in British Columbia.
okay.
He's great, and he's been a friend and a mentor for, like, I don't know, over 10 years, and he's given
Yeah,
me, yeah, so many amazing opportunities, like writing the medicinal mushroom chapter in the textbook of natural medicine between him and Joe Pizzorno. I think
yeah.
they gave me that opportunity, and that was
Wow,
really great, and because I wrote that when I was in medical school.
wow.
Yeah.
That's that's such an honor. Yeah, it's a small world, I'm sure. I mean, when I was going through school, it was Dr. Standish was sort of big on the medicinal mushrooms, and
Yes.
there was another doctor out of Oregon, Dr. Glenn Nagel, who
Yeah, yeah.
brought
I
brought
love both of
mushrooms.
them. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they kind of brought those to us and really opened our eyes. So
Yeah, have you had any of Glenn's mushroom cocktails?
I think we did a bunch of that
Yeah.
back in the day, but he was very interesting, and yeah, he always has all these creative formulas that he would come up with and kid-friendly ideas, and
Yeah.
yeah, he's special person that yeah, I remember him fondly. Well, that's really it's really great to hear about people who influenced you, and it's great because that knowledge has to be carried forward, right, to the next up and coming clinicians. And so with the processes that you've talked about, I mean, there's some real specific techniques and extraction techniques that are really important for people to understand. I think both clinicians and I do think the general public and people who are searching for medicinal mushrooms for their own health should be familiar with. I mean, and one of those is kind of term dual extracted. What is that? And it's sort of like listed on the bottles or the supplement labels. What is that?
Yeah, people will most often see that when it's a liquid, and what it means is that there's been an extraction in alcohol and there's been an extraction in water. Unfortunately, it doesn't really tell us anything more than that because
Mhm.
with a lot of mushrooms, the timing and the when you do the water extract and when you do the alcohol extract really makes a big difference. So, most of the time, when you see dual extract, it'll mean that the water has been boiled in water for hopefully at least about 2 hours,
Mhm.
and then there's been an alcohol extract. You don't know if it's been with hot alcohol or if it's been a cold extract or if the alcohol extract came before the boiling or after the boiling.
Mhm.
So, there needs to be a little bit of work around kind of more information, I think, with that because so let's just talk about a few mushrooms where it really makes a big difference of
Okay.
the timing of those things. So, with lion's mane, for example, especially with the fruiting body is kind of what most people like if you're having a liquid extract of lion's mane, it's gonna be the fruiting body or the mushroom, those names are synonymous.
Mhm.
And if you boil that first before doing an alcohol extract, then you're going to be destroying the haricinones,
Mm.
which are one of the main components that you want in lion's mane that has nerve growth factor synthase effects and
Mhm.
BDNF effects, and it's a yeah, important constituent that you're gonna want as part of your product. The boiling will definitely play a role in degrading that.
Mm.
So, ideally, you would have had the alcohol extract first, or what a lot of many companies are doing, at least the good ones, are doing a sock slit
Hmm.
extract. Do you know about sock slit
I'm not familiar with
extraction?
that. No.
This is my favorite extraction method for mushrooms. So, it's a way to do a hot ethanol extract, but it's not gonna get so hot. I mean, ethanol's boiling point is like 78 Celsius or something,
Okay.
and so you're just below where the haricinones would be damaged,
Mhm.
and it's like a closed system hot ethanol extract where you have, like, the boiling flask with the ethanol, and then up above here, you have the mushroom powder, the plant powder.
Mhm.
You have a hot plate under the boiling flask, and so you have the steam comes up, hits the mushroom powder, and then there's, like, a neck where it comes back down and cycles.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so it's this amazing way to make either, like, really quick tinctures with plants or, like, with mushrooms, it's, I think, the best way to do the ethanol portion of
Okay.
things.
So after that, there's a second step, which is the boiling.
Then you would want to boil it in water as
Okay.
well to get all of the polysaccharides and amino acids and stuff like that.
And you mentioned the fruiting body and the other key component of mushrooms, the mycelium.
Mhm.
And I do see that mentioned a lot. And you mentioned earlier that the fruiting body is sort of what we know as the mushroom. Like if you were to go into the store and purchase a mushroom, you'd be buying the fruiting body, I assume.
Yep.
So, talk about the mycelium. This is one of the coolest things in nature, I think, but I would love to hear your take on mycelium and how you describe them.
Yeah, mycelium is amazing. It's the underground portion of the fungal organism. It's the part of the fungal organism that you usually don't see, and there can be these mycelial networks that are I mean, it's like the biggest organism on Earth is like a
Mhm,
huge mycelial network, and
mhm.
mycelium, I think, it's connecting all things,
Mhm.
really, and it's amazing, and it's also not the best way to get your medicine from the fungal organism
Mm.
in most cases, and it's kind of it's not easy to pick out the mycelium from the matter that it's growing on. And
Okay.
historically, when we think about mushroom medicine and traditional use, people wouldn't go out into the forest and kind of try to pick out the mycelium from the
Right.
earth or the
Right.
log. And so, as amazing as mycelium is as a part of the fungal organism, it's usually not the part of the organism that I'm looking for.
Hmm.
There are certain situations where that might be different. For example, with lion's mane. So those hericenones, those compounds that I mentioned that are in the fruiting body that degrade with heat,
Hmm.
those aren't in the mycelium, but the mycelium has these other compounds called erinacines that act similar where they cross the blood-brain barrier and they stimulate nerve growth factor and BDNF, and those erinacines are not gonna be in the fruiting body, they're only in the mycelium.
Okay.
So, lion's mane is an example of if you can find pure mycelium and have that as a part of your supplement that you're taking with the fruiting body, that would be ideal.
Hmm. Okay. And on that note, I mean, there's some compounds that I think a lot of people are familiar with. I think one of them is beta glucans,
Mhm.
the triterpenes. Those, I think people are more familiar with these terms. Beta glucans obviously gets a lot of attention in the immunology applications. Can you talk about extraction methods, how they influence the yield of compounds a little bit more? Because that seems like a really important aspect.
Yeah, yeah. So beta glucans are polysaccharides, long sugar molecules, they're water soluble,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to heat the mushroom to kind of break down the cell wall.
Uh-huh.
The mushroom cell wall is pretty complex and hard. It's made up of chitin and beta glucans and mannans, and so the heat will it's not gonna break down the chitin, but it will just break down the cell wall a little bit and make those polysaccharides more available. And ideally, you would boil the mushroom for a few hours to get all of those polysaccharides, all of
Mm.
those beta glucans. The longer you boil, those polysaccharides will start to depolymerize and break down, and then they're gonna not have the immune action that you want in the
Okay.
body, and so
Okay.
you don't wanna boil it too long, but 2 hours is kind of the magic
Wow.
number there. And then you'll also be getting amino acids, proteins in that water, in the water solvent. You might also depending some mushrooms have, like, polyphenols,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll get some in the water as well. Some of the ones are also that I'm more kind of interested in that are in other mushrooms like Felinus linteus, this polyphenol called hispalone. That's gonna be a little bit more alcohol soluble, so but yeah, the water is mostly you're gonna get all those beta glucans. And then the alcohol, you're going to be getting the triterpenes and some polyphenols and the hericenones and the
Mm-hmm.
erinacines.
Yeah.
Um, Cordycepin is also going to be mostly it's like 50% ethanol is like the right solvent for cordycepin. And then I should say too, with the water, you're gonna be getting ergothioneine, which is this very cool amino acid
Hmm.
derivative that is almost exclusively found in mushrooms.
Interesting. Yeah. I, I think that hope we can get into cordyceps in a bit because it's one of my favorites. So with one of the things that I was gonna mention about beta glucans is, and when you were talking, it really sparked a thought that how the heck do we even know if the companies are doing all this? Like, is it? I mean, I know. natural supplement industry, this is one of the knocks on it is we don't know. And some responsible companies will go to the extremes of paying for companies or to show that they're doing this in a way that's very out there and open. Is it the same in the mushroom industry? It's sort of dependent on the company to do that?
Yeah, and so you want to see either on their website or on the label that it says that it's been tested for a certain percentage of beta glucan.
Okay.
Um, with some mushrooms, you also want to see, like, triterpene levels. That's gonna mostly be with reishi and with chaga.
Mhm.
Other mushrooms just aren't super high in triterpenes, and so it's really gonna be the beta glucans that you wanna make sure they're standardized to a certain amount of beta glucans.
Mhm.
Um, and then with cordyceps, you would wanna see that it has a certain amount of cordycepin.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is like a huge problem in the supplement world in general, and then definitely in like the mushroom supplement world. And I'm on 2 different medicinal mushroom committees that are
Oh,
working on making sure that there's kind of more kind of education and certain implementation of these practices for supplement companies and labels and
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so before we leave this particular topic, I wanna circle back to something you said that some of the companies are not mushroom companies that are in the industry. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so they'll say that it's like a mushroom supplement, but it's actually the myceliated grain,
Ooh,
which is
okay.
different than pure mycelium. So, like what we were saying before is it's really hard to separate the mycelium from what it's growing on, which is called the
Mhm.
substrate.
Mhm.
So, some companies will just take that myceliated grain. The grain is usually like sorghum or oats or brown rice, and so they'll have to either just powder all of that up, so it'll be like half mycelium, half grain in their product,
Okay.
or it'll sometimes some companies will do like an extract of that, but it's still not pure mycelium.
Oh,
It's
goodness.
it's gonna be, like, part grain, part mycelium. To be fair, the grain has been fermented by the mycelium. Some companies are claiming that that has its own medicinal qualities, and so it
Mm.
actually is, like, an additive benefit. And then the other thing to think about there, though, is, if you have any patients who have sensitivities to grains or who have celiac disease and you don't know if those oats were gluten-free oats, it's like they might
Mhm.
be having a reaction to the the mushroom product, but it's not actually the mushroom they're reacting to, it could be the grains in there.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's also deceiving to the consumer where it says 500 milligrams of, let's say, Cordyceps militaris or something, and it's like, well, that's not true. There's not 500 milligrams of pure Cordyceps mycelium in there. It's
Right.
probably maybe half fermented
Wow.
grain. So it's kind of like making yeah, like, just, like, powdering up tempeh and putting it in a capsule is good. Kind
Yeah.
of.
An interesting analogy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that, my head started spinning a little bit there, and I don't wanna go off into a tangent, but I was just thinking, we always warn people about how mold grows on grains and I just wonder if, like, the mycotoxin issue with those products is real or it's just something I'm imagining.
No, I think that's, like, a very real concern because you also think about, like, the environment that they're growing in. It's, like, moist,
Hmm.
it's, like, accommodating to mycotoxins, and when people are afraid of mycotoxins with medicinal mushrooms, I always say, I'm like, "Medicinal mushrooms are not synonymous with mycotoxins.
Right.
These mushrooms we're talking about do not make mycotoxins." But if you're getting a product that is myceliated grain and you don't know the growing conditions there, you don't know how long it was on the shelf, all of these things, there's a lot more susceptibility for mycotoxins
From other species or
from other species that
right.
yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get into some species, like some deep dive into some species. And the one that I wish I would have had this morning was lion's mane. I forgot to take my morning fish oil that has like a little citicoline in it. Usually gets me sharp for the morning, but I just had a busy morning. But lion's mane would have come in handy too. So I'd like to just get into lion's mane. You can talk about whatever you want. I mean, just what what's your what draws you to lion's mane as a tool, as a medicine, and what's interesting about it?
Yeah. I really think about lion's mane as a psychobiotic. So,
Oh,
historical use is really like digestive issues and
mm,
gut inflammation. And it is, I think, yes, it has like these carcinones and erinacines and ergothioneine, which I'll talk about those things and kind of the effect that has on the nervous system in the brain. But I think a lot of the benefits for brain health is also just coming from the kind of helping with digestive health. So
wow.
lion's mane, like other mushrooms, is really high in those beta glucans,
Mhm.
polysaccharides, and those are going to be feeding good gut bacteria and helping to make a healthier gut microbiome environment, increasing postbiotics like butyrate, helping
Mm,
with the healthy gut barrier integrity. Um, and those polysaccharides are also decreasing inflammation in the intestinal tract. There's really cool research on, I mean, lion's mane for atrophic gastritis, helping to decrease inflammation, healing gastric ulcers, also some really interesting, like, mouse studies showing before and after with ulcerative colitis and lion's mane,
wow.
and just amazing healing properties for the whole digestive tract.
Hmm. So like a
And
gut brain treatment almost.
say that again?
Like a gut brain treatment.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. And so, it's like the importance of the gut microbiome for brain health. There's a lot of information about that these days on the gut brain axis, and
Mhm.
lion's mane is definitely a important medicine when I think about that. Um, and then kind of in addition to all of just like helping to heal the gut, lion's mane does have these very specific compounds that cross the blood-brain barrier, which is kind of hard to find. There's not a
Yeah,
ton of things that does that for good reason. We want our blood-brain barrier to have
yeah,
good integrity and not let anything in. Um, but so ergothioneine is kind of, I think that that's, like, way more interesting than hericinones or irinacines.
yeah.
Do you know much about ergothioneine? Have
I
you
don't. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so ergothioneine is an amino acid derivative that looks really similar to glutathione.
Hmm,
So it has a sulfur, it acts really similar to glutathione in the body and acts as like a backup system to glutathione.
hmm.
Ergothioneine is super bioavailable. We have specific transporters. They're even, I mean, they're OCT-N1 transporters, but I think they're also just called ergothioneine transporters because they're pretty specific to ergothioneine. Um, and so when you consume lion's mane, basically all of the ergothioneine in that mushroom is going to be bioavailable and absorbed. And there's transporters in tissues that are more susceptible to oxidative stress
Hmm,
and in the brain. And so ergothioneine, it can be taken up into the cell and stored for up to a month.
hmm.
And so when you're subjected to situations where there's a lot of oxidative stress, say with like, I don't know, forest fires
Yeah,
or
exactly.
would be a good example of that. It's like you'd end up depleting your innate antioxidant systems, and so to have if you're consuming mushrooms on a regular basis, you've got this, like, backup ergothioneine system
Hmm,
that,
right.
comes into play.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, so many chronic conditions are burning through their oxidative supply. Chronic infectious conditions, Lyme, EBV,
Mhm.
mast cell activation disorders,
Yeah.
mold toxicity, heavy metal toxicity. I mean, there's like a burn rate for their antioxidant supply. So that's sounds foundational to me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And and there's a study that's happening right now. I can't wait to kind of see the results that's, like, looking at ergothioneine and neurodegenerative disease. There's a lot of, like, animal studies and, um, some other kind of preclinical trials, but this one is actually, like, has a pretty large population of humans, and I don't know the study's gonna be over, but it's in process. But there is generally some interesting information about, like, people who are more susceptible to neurodegenerative disease tend to have less ergothioneine transporters,
Okay.
and people who have less mushrooms in their diet, like
Mm.
cultures who have less mushrooms in their diet, have less ergothioneine transporters, and so you can also like, the more mushrooms you eat, the more of these transporters, the more protective it is. But I think that part of lion's mane's kind of magic on the brain and nervous system is due to ergothioneine just as much as hericenones or the erinacines.
Yeah. So important. I mean, I think that's now that we're learning so much about the pathways in the brain, such as the lymphatic system and the rise of concern of dementia and Alzheimer's because people are living longer and heart disease is better managed. So people are now they're dealing with brain disorders more and more. I mean, this is it's really nice to know about this tool and also the mechanism because it's like knowing the mechanisms is a game changer. It's one thing. Traditional use is what got us here, right? And then now the science application, learning the mechanisms of why the traditional use got us here.
Mhm.
It's fascinating. So cordyceps is another one that, I mean, I think that was probably my first medicinal mushroom that I started adopting in my regimen, and I'm just a huge fan of. And
Mm.
it's it's grown because I've learned more and more, and the applications have come more and more. So I'd love to hear about cordyceps a little bit and how you think about it.
Yeah. So, cordyceps, there's 2 kind of main species that people are going to see. So there's Cordyceps militaris, which is usually you'll find that as the fruiting body,
Mhm.
and then Ophiocordyceps sinensis, you're basically only gonna find as the myceliated grain unless you're paying, like, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get the fruiting body from
Mhm.
Nepal.
Okay.
Yeah, and so for those who don't know, like, cordyceps is a kind of fungus that takes over insects mostly, so, like, worms, moths, basically any kind of insect, and it kind of turns that insect into a zombie. The insect
Hmm.
then is, like, made to crawl or go up to a place that's very high up, and then the mushroom fruits and then releases its spores.
Wow.
So a little different than other mushrooms where it's not
Yes.
just, like, growing out
Like
of
a
the ground.
sci-fi movie.
Totally, yeah, I mean, The Last of Us, that video game and that show is, like, based on cordyceps
Oh, is it?
actually, like, taking over humans. Yeah, they actually call it cordyceps multiple times as the
What does that say about me that I like it so much?
Yeah, it means that maybe it's already taken over your brain. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and so cordyceps, the militaris, is going to have generally, like, the higher amount of cordycepin,
Mhm.
and it's really I think about cordyceps the most for situations of burnout. So, it is an adaptogen, and it can be kind of stimulating for some people, and I've noticed that for people who are kind of, like, more in the throes of chronic stress where they haven't reached burnout yet, it
Mhm.
can sometimes be a little bit too stimulating, so I actually usually utilize reishi mushroom there, or I'll do reishi and cordyceps together because I think they kinda balance each other out, and then cordyceps can be so helpful for improving low cortisol levels and improving energy, improving endurance. It helps to kind of restore mitochondria. The thing with cordycepin is that it's an adenosine analog, And
Okay.
so it works kind of on a lot of adenosine pathways in the body, and that's like the impact that it has on neurotransmitters is mostly through adenosine pathways. Um, there is some research showing that it enhances tyrosine hydroxylase, so it might have some impact on improving dopamine levels. That's all really like preclinical studies.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I'm curious to hear if you use it in your practice for like low dopamine states.
So, yes, from especially people with chronic PTSD, or sorry, complex PTSD, where it wasn't an acute event. It's just sort of like an accumulation of trauma that's kind of continued throughout many people's lifetime. So the chronic depletion state, and their adrenals are usually in a state where they need support, and that goes along with the brain. So yes, I think the dopamine aspects and the adrenal aspects I use it for.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it also traditionally, I saw it coming up a lot in COVID.
Mhm.
It was like people would come to me and say, "Hey, I heard about cordyceps is really helping with the immune system or at certain stages of COVID." So then it got another leg in that way.
Yeah, there was even a clinical trial for long COVID patients using the CS4, which is the Ophiocordyceps sinensis mycelial extract.
Okay.
But it really helped people with energy and just like general quality of life. And cordyceps is also an antiviral.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, I mean, on multiple
Hence the
mechanisms.
insects.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Insects, it's doing something to them that's
totally. Yeah, yeah, where it has this it decreases inflammation, it is an antiviral, it supports the mitochondria, it's
yes.
also working on the neurotransmitter system, it also improves low cortisol levels, so it's really kind of this yeah, I'm just getting so excited about cordyceps. Yeah, it's like a very well-rounded mushroom medicine,
Yeah.
for sure.
So I remember my first second year at Bastyr, where this was like 2007, and I think Glenn Dr. Nagel talked about cordyceps in a class, and at the time I was, working out and, into, you know, fitness a lot. Like I was training a lot. I was pre-kids, and I had all the time in the world to just think about me. And
What's
uh,
that?
yeah, and so I ended up ordering this huge tin of cordyceps. Like it was like just this massive tin from from Hawaii, and it was supposed to be this really good source. And uh, anyways, took it, and I thought I would get through it. You know, at some point that tin lasted me for years. I finally it was there was so much in there, but I'm just thinking back that that was probably mycelium mixed with grain. Probably if
Well, I'm curious what species it was.
I don't I assume it was Cordyceps sinensis because
Okay.
that's what I had learned at the time.
Yeah, yeah. And was it in as, like, a powder form or
Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah, it was probably myceliated grain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
it's yeah.
but, I mean, you're still like the thing is that there's still some benefit, right? It's not, like, totally, um yeah, it's not, like, not helpful at all. It is
Yeah.
there's some benefit there, but it's not but imagine if you were using the, Cordyceps militaris fruiting body,
Wow.
then
Yeah. Yeah. That's real. I didn't know the distinction, so that's really helpful. And I think before we wrap up, I want to spend some time hearing about your products because the time and care that you obviously put into your work. It gives me confidence to recommend your products. Um, well, I think that it would be great to hear some things just at this point about other favorite medicinal mushrooms. I hear a lot about turkey tail, reishi, maybe some kind of quick comments about those and um, maybe some other mechanisms that we don't know of that we haven't mentioned about mushrooms.
Mhm. Yeah, so reishi is going to be kind of the main mushroom that has, like, those triterpenes that we were talking
Mhm.
about before, and those are going to mostly be ganoderic acids with reishi, and so the reishi, I use it for, like, so many different reasons in my practice, but we can kind of get into a few of them, so, like, nervous system support, really for like chronic anxiety states, chronic stress situations, insomnia. Reishi is kind of the king of the mushrooms for all of that.
Mm.
And and then on kind of an immunological level, we have these polysaccharides in reishi that are stimulating natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells, but also T regulatory cells.
Wow,
And so it's like
that's helpful.
totally, yeah, and so I use reishi a lot in different autoimmune situations, um, and then the triterpenes in reishi also are going to be anti-inflammatory, and they have direct anti-cancer mechanisms as well, um, and then those triterpenes are also having kind of I think that's largely kind of what is supporting the HPA axis dysregulation in studies on reishi. It's probably mostly the triterpene aspect of reishi. But then again, there's also like this whole energetic level with mushrooms, especially the polypores like reishi, where it's like, in nature, they're playing a huge role in transformative cycles and breakdown of death and rebirth and
Mm,
growth of new life. Like that's what mushrooms do.
mm,
And so I always like when I think about especially like mushrooms and complex PTSD, um, and any kind of like situation where there needs to be some kind of or where you're going through some kind of transformative experience.
mm,
Yeah,
wonderful.
reishi can be so helpful.
How about turkey tail?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about turkey tail is that the majority of the research on turkey tail is actually on these specific compounds that are extracted from a certain strain of turkey tail mycelium.
Okay.
So it's going to be PSP and PSK.
Mm,
Um, a lot of the cancer research is on PSK, polysaccharide crestin. The drug that's derived from that's used in Japan in cancer therapy is called Crestin.
okay.
So all of that is from these like patented extraction methods from this strain of turkey tail mycelium. That being said, the fruiting body is high in polysaccharides. Um, and there's a few clinical trials on the fruiting body where it's actually mixed with red sage root.
Okay.
And those I think are fantastic, and that's like a good combination anyways, just red sage and turkey tail, improving, natural killer cell function and kind of antiviral immunity generally. And, um, even though a lot of the research is on these, like, very specific compounds in turkey from turkey tail mycelium, all of my cancer patients they're taking turkey tail. They're usually taking it in combination, like, I put it in combination with reishi and maitake. I like that trio. It's very supportive when people are going through chemotherapy,
Mhm.
helps with quality of life, it helps, if people are having, like, neutropenia, or yeah, just to, like, keep also, the thing with turkey tail and these other mushrooms when they're part of an oncology regimen is that they're also helping to protect the healthy cells while also having these kind of direct mechanisms of stimulating cytotoxic T cells and natural killer cells. So,
Mhm.
yeah, turkey tail is always kind of a part of that there. And then turkey tail is also really great for the gut microbiome. So,
Okay.
I like to utilize, yeah, turkey tail along with the lion's mane if I'm thinking about the mushrooms kind of more specific for, like as prebiotics, basically.
Gotcha. Wonderful. Yeah. So I think, one of the things I don't think we'll have time to, but maybe there's, if there is at the end, just a quick comment on, just sort of these uh, cautions and other precautions when using mushrooms. I think there's been some confusion in the world of, prescribing medicinal mushrooms about, if someone is, in an autoimmune flare, or if someone's, in a acute inflammation, say like in the early stages of a cold. Maybe it's not the case, but listening to you, I hear a lot about the modulation. So maybe if there's time at the end, you can just give us a few words on that. But let's hear about lutein medicinals, and then also your clinical practice, and just how people can interface with you.
Yeah, Lucidum Medicinals is the mushroom company that was born out of everything that we've talked about today.
Yes.
And, I run it with my husband, who's also a naturopathic doctor, and our friend Mikhail, and so it's a very, yeah, nice small family-run company, and the intention originally was to have supplements to prescribe for our patients, and now it's definitely expanded to just, like, for all the people of the world, or of the United States at least, for now. And we have 3 main formulas at this time. Our intentions are to expand into different body systems, additional body systems. Right now, we have an immune formula that has the turkey tail and maitake and reishi,
Mm.
and, um, and then a lung formula that we're kind of in the process of reformulating, and so that's why I'm, like, hesitant. I'm like, "Well, it's called lungs, it's gonna be called Respire," but and that one has cordyceps and reishi and oyster mushroom, and then a brain and nerves formula, which is actually turning into, we're gonna change the name to NeuroAdapt and kind of change it up a little bit, but right now it's tremella, oyster, and lion's mane. We're adding reishi and cordyceps to it, and then it's
Wow.
gonna be called
Nice.
NeuroAdapt.
Very nice. Excellent. And so people can purchase directly from your website.
Yes, yeah, so lucidummedicinals.com. They can purchase from the website, and yeah, it's probably the easiest way to do it. I'd love to, yeah, give a discount to your listeners.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
Um,
Yeah. You can just let us know what that is, and we'll put it in the
okay,
notes.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. And then your clinical practice, how are you accepting people to work with you, people who are interested in sort of your philosophy?
Yeah, so I do naturopathic primary care in Washington State, in
Mhm.
Paulsbo, and, I prefer in person, but I do a lot of telemedicine, and yeah, I don't really have, like, a strict focus because I am primary care, so I kind of
Mhm.
see everything. I'd say, like, my patient population tends to be kind of perimenopausal women,
Mhm.
and I love that population.
Oh, great.
And I'm open to everything, and I am taking new patients, but I think my next new patient appointment is, like, February or
Yeah.
something like that, but I am taking them, so yeah, if you're open to waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's great to hear all that you're doing, and thanks for leading the profession in this important area of medicine. I think the more I learn, it's about mushrooms, they continue to just fascinate me, and to know, like I said, the constituents and the mechanisms and the quality that needs to be taken when prescribing these is, it's great that you're behind. There's a company that you're behind that we can all turn to. Um, so yeah, just some closing thoughts, and any kind of comments you would just leave us with, like as far as safety and.
Yeah, a few safety things. So, yes, most mushrooms are immune modulating. Um, Shiitake is a little more stimulating, and so some people are totally fine with it. Other people it might kind of could trigger like an autoimmune flare. So just be more cautious with shiitake. I mean, that's why I don't actually put it in any of my products, just
Hmm.
because it is like so person dependent.
Hmm.
Um, and, like 10% of the population also gets, like, shiitake dermatitis, and so if you get a rash after eating shiitake, you are one of those special 10%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's, like, some theoretical concern, that I've heard about lion's mane and, endometriosis.
Mm.
So part of, like, the kind of pain kind of loop that people end up with endometriosis, it does have to do with, like, BDNF, and so there's concern about, like, taking substances that are going to increase BDNF
I
and
see.
perhaps, like, worsen that kind of pain.
Mm.
I've never actually seen that happen in
Hmm.
clinical practice, but I've had multiple people reach out kind of asking me about it. So
Yeah.
I guess people can just be aware of that. Also kind of theoretical concern with, using reishi and blood thinners. I've also just, like, never actually seen that be an issue with anyone taking
Right.
reishi, but I know that it's a common concern if people, like, Googled reishi, it'd be like, "It'll thin your blood and make you bleed out," or something.
Yeah.
So, I don't
Yeah.
I don't think that's a totally real concern. Um, but yeah, and I also just so people know, it's like I've been writing and educating about mushrooms for, like, over 10 years, and if you go on my website and go to, like, the blog section, there's so much information on there, like, you
Hmm.
can really deep dive, um,
Hmm.
and a lot of, like yeah, a lot of questions can pretty easily be answered there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. It'll be great to sync up with you sometime down the road. We'll hear some updates.
Yeah.
You can be the podcast expert for medicinal mushrooms. So,
Happy to be.
all right. Well, thanks, Dr. Sitkoff, and really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's episode. This is just a recap of what I learned talking to Dr. Sitkoff. I was very impressed by her knowledge and her ability to be fluid in both the clinical research space and clinical application space, and to know what deep level of knowledge is necessary to not only purchase the correct type of mushroom and the correct part from the mushroom, but also the dosing and timing. And what really blew me away was the gut brain applications that we have from mushrooms, and that mushrooms can play such a big role in gut health. So I'm going to be looking closely from this episode at how I can use these mushroom blends in my gut brain axis treatments. So very helpful. And it's just such a delight to speak to a up and coming clinician and researcher that's passionate and really is embracing the medicine. Um, so as I mentioned to her, she's going to be a go-to expert in medicinal mushrooms for the One Thing podcast and for me clinically going forward. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I did, and please share this episode with your friends and loved ones so that they can also benefit from hearing this great discussion. Thanks again, and see you next time.